what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box?
You got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me.
Freehand is beating his net at the plate. Crawford is over there watching. Good see, sir. You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on. Oh, I must be in the front row.
My Detroit Tigers are fucking going for it. Full send. Just as we talked about with the Skubal situation, right as the season ended, they basically had three options. They could trade him. They could sign him for $400 million for 10 years. Seemed unlikely. Or they could hold on to him and fucking go for it in 2026. And that was what I always wanted them to do. I predicted them to do. And they're fucking doing it. Much of Detroit was wringing their hands throughout this offseason as Tigers hadn't done a whole lot other than adding Kenley Jansen and re-signing Kyle Finnegan and Gleyber Torres signing a one-year deal. So it was becoming difficult to be a Tigers fan, as it's a weird dynamic in Detroit because it seems like all our pro franchises have been hesitant to really go for it, make big deals, free agent signings. The Red Wings haven't yet. The Pistons trade deadline came and went, even though they're the best team in basketball right now, which is crazy. The Lions, people were upset at the trade deadline. They didn't do enough. So it seemed like the Tigers are falling into that same pattern. And then there was so much consternation over the Tarik Skubal arbitration case, where we talked last time. Tigers offered $19 million while Skubal's camp was asking for $32 million. Much of the speculation was that if the Tigers lost that arbitration case, they would not be able to add anyone this offseason because that would be an additional $13 million that they weren't planning on. Scott Harris and Chris Ilitch said, fuck that. Who cares about your $13 extra million? Enjoy it, Skubal. We're going to add to this fucking roster. In fact, the hearing was on a Wednesday. The results weren't going to come out until the next day, but after the hearings that evening, word quickly spread that out of the blue, Framber Valdez was signed by the Tigers to a 3-year, $115 million contract. There's actually an opt-out after year 2. Just floored everybody. And I did some research. There was not a brunch with Hinch, as I had speculated might happen. It was a dinner where Hinch and Framber Valdez met to discuss what it might be like if he returned or if he came to Detroit to return with his old manager. Apparently that dinner was just as good or better than going to brunch with Carlos Correa a few years ago or whoever else.
Brunch does not work. Brunch does not work.
No, it does not. So dinners are the key to getting old Houston Astros back on your roster. I love this deal. There's nothing not to like about it. It's a short-term deal. It's $115 million, which is a lot. It's $38.5 million per year, which is the most for any left-handed pitching free agent. But that's just money. Like, I don't care. He can leave after 2 years. That might be just great too if he does what he needs to do, and especially in 2026. We'll be happy to see him go find another contract if he wants. But if he sucks, which he's now 30, I think he's either going to be 32 or is 32. We're only on the hook for 2 years after this, one of which might not even be a season. So I'm not sure how that would actually work out. But there's no reason not to love every part of this deal. Valdez gives them the top two in any rotation in the American League. I would argue, unless you have an argument against, I could listen to. There might be better top to bottom rotations in the American League, but the 1-2 punch of Skubal and Valdez, I'd put it up against anybody. Valdez, he did have a rough last 10 games of the season. I think his ERA was over at 6, but for longevity, I mean, he's got the most wins of any pitcher since through the 2021 season till now. He's got 68 wins. Wins, you can say whatever you want, but he brings a wealth of playoff experience, including pitching in a game or a World Series clinching game for the Astros. He's got all the experience you'd want, and you're not relying on him to be your number one. He's the number two, he's like the perfect number 2 starter. So I love it. It was a shocking. It was something you could maybe see coming, but it's exactly what the Tigers needed and what Tigers fans really needed to get us fired up. They've instantly become one of the top leading candidates to win the world, to at least win the American League. World Series is a whole nother ball game, but I was floored by that. And then I was floored even more a couple days later when Justin Verlander agreed to terms. The return of JV to Detroit for just 1 year, $13 million, $11 million of which is deferred until 2030, which I thought was really interesting. Some of Valdez's money is actually deferred to 2030 as well. So I don't know how they came up with that or what that actually means or what that might mean. Maybe they're thinking there won't be baseball for 4 years after this. I'm not sure how that works, but I thought it was interesting. So the Tigers rotation, the only sad part about that is kind of confirm that the injury issues were more than Reese Olson could overcome going into the season. JV was signed as a replacement for Olson. So when out of the blue JV was signed, that news was not broken by Jeff Passan or Bob Nightingale or anybody like that. The Tigers broke that news, which is just basically never happens anymore. It's somebody, Ken Rosenthal or somebody's breaking it on Twitter.
Right.
That did not happen this time with Verlander. They kept it very close to the vest. Verlander said, he sat down after the season, just started thinking, well, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And the first thing he thought of was come back to Detroit. Obviously, it wasn't really an option for the Tigers until Olson went down. And as soon as that, he actually had it's confusing with Olson a little bit. He was injured in August of last year and opted to rehab instead of surgery on his shoulder, which I've talked for a long time. Elbows are one thing, but shoulders are a fucking hazy mystery and are really concerning in a lot of ways when pitchers fuck up their rotator cuff or whatever else is going on in there. He opted to rehab it and then re-injured himself in October. And people were wondering, why didn't you just have the surgery back in October and then you'd be okay for now? Well, turns out even if he had the surgery immediately in October, he'd still miss the 2026 season. So he was going to roll the dice and rehab all off season, hoping that he could be back at some point this year. And it did not work. On February 2nd, apparently he finally had surgery, but he should be okay for 2027 if and when that happens. But that's where the JV side of it came in. So that's just JV. I mean, he was on your Giants last year. Started out shaky. Didn't get any run support. It took him 2 months to get his first win with the Giants.
Yeah, it took a little bit.
I don't know if that was all his fault, but I believe it was his last 13 starts, he had a 2.6 ERA with your Giants at age 42. So if you want to look at that, that's a certain positive, but he's slotting in as the Tigers number 5, basically behind Flaherty and Casey Mize. So I'm fine. It's such a cool story. Him coming back. He will retire, or he will go into the Hall of Fame with the Old English D on his plaque. Incredible marketing opportunities, of course. I mean, bobbleheads, every home start he's going to have is going to be sold out, at least to start the season. So it just made a ton of sense on a lot of levels. So I'm impressed and happy that that's how it turned out. And then I was thinking, well, if they need more starters, even more depth, would they go after Max Scherzer? He's still available, but that relationship is a little bit different, a little more strained. I've had some discussions with Tigers fans thinking, oh, bring back Scherzer in middle relief. Like, okay, but why would he want to do that? I've never heard of an aging superstar that would want to just come back to the bullpen just to kind of hang on. I think he would rather retire before he did that. So right now, Troy Melton would be the number 6 starter. He's kind of the swingman, can be the long relief or work into the rotation if they need him. So I really like the Tigers rotation. I like the back end of their bullpen, middle relief. That's always a crapshoot. But so the real question, of course, going forward is offense, which was incredible in the first half of last season and top 5 offense in all baseball. and then a bottom 5 offense in all of baseball the second half and into the playoffs. So they're counting on, of course, prospects coming up. They're counting on young position players improving. We'll see how that goes. Everyone is excited to see the number 2 prospect in all of baseball, Kevin McGonigal, this spring training. We've got Max Clark, who's probably a year away in center field. Max Anderson is another name out there that made some noise last year in the minors. So there's some options. So they're kind of hoping to see an improvement from the offense, but the pitching is not going to be an issue. So the way it looks right now, so I'm fired up about it.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
One guy poured beer all over my head. The guy said, how can you take that? I said, look, that man didn't do nothing. He poured some beer on my head. He's just showing he's a White Sox fan. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
Sparky, a million thanks for, as always, the most interesting interview. And now today, let's just have a lot of thrilling baseball and not so many fisticuffs.
Word Hole Media.